Well, here's what I've learned over the years in the NFC East. Nobody knows anything, right? If you go into last season, everyone would have said, yeah, Dallas and Philadelphia are the top two teams in that division, and the Giants and the Washington football team are dreck. Well, who was competing down the last week of the season for the NFC East title? It was the dreck, the Giants and the Washington football team. I expect nothing, and nothing would surprise me in the NFC East. That's the only way I can look at it.
We are the Mac and Mac guys. Jordan McDonald and John McMullen here with Bird 365. We'll open it from Trey Wingo soon. He'll hop aboard with us for our final half hour here. And when we get Trey on, we'll certainly ask him Eagles-related stuff, but we'll touch on all the things in the National Football League, including Deshaun Watson, including, John, just want to get your quick thought here and something we'll get to with Trey if he joins us. Latest big money player inked yesterday in the NFL. Linebacker Fred Warner of the 49ers did a contract extension for 5 years and $95 million. It's not quarterback money. I get it. It's not quite the quarterbacks get paid, but there are very few linebackers in the National Football League, as in none, who, if you break it down individually per year, $19 million per. That's the highest ever. Who were you pointing to earlier in the show? Goddard. Goddard could become the highest paid tight end. That's the way it works. If you're the guy who's up and you're close, you just jump above because the salary cap continues to go up and up and up and up. And I don't know that Fred Warner's the best linebacker, but as of today, he is the highest paid per year linebacker. Were you surprised at the number?
No, because that's how contracts work. It's about timing and circumstance. And we had Howard Eskin on earlier, and he said, he's not going to get Dallas Goddard's not going to get as much money as George Kittle or Travis Kelce. He's not as good as those guys. That's not what I'm saying. But the timing and circumstance says he'll be in the conversation. He has a big year. He'll be able to have his agent go in and say, it's my turn. I should be the highest paid tight end in football.
Speaking of in the conversation, joining us on our conversation here on Birds 365 is our buddy Trey Wingo. He's still got his golfing hat on. I asked him to come on yesterday. He said he couldn't. He was going to the links. He hasn't taken the hat off yet. Does that mean you shot well yesterday, Mr. Wingo?
This means I look like crap, but I played all right. Jody Mac. How are we? John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Trey. As long as you hit one. I hit one drive. That feels good. I want to walk right off the course. That's it for me. I want to go out on top.
I closed out strong. We'll leave it that way. The start was ragged. The middle was okay, but the finish was good.
Nice. That's all that matters.
Trey, John and I were just discussing before you came on the Fred Warner contract, getting big bucks from the San Francisco 49ers. Now the highest paid linebacker in football. Again, you can make numbers sing and dance depending on how you look at him in a salary cap world. Is he that good a player? Did the 49ers get him at a reasonable number? Did they overpay to get him? How would you rank Warner with the other linebackers in the league? Did that contract surprise you?
It surprised me in the terms of the numbers for an off-ball linebacker, right? Like, he's not your classic edge linebacker. He's a really good player and really productive. And I've liked him since they drafted him, in the third round a few years ago. But listen, they're the numbers and the actual numbers, right? What is real in that $91 million deal? But I'm telling you, if that's the market for, basically an inside linebacker, that's a surprising number for me. Not that he doesn't deserve it. I do think he's really, really good. But I think people like Darius Leonard of the Indianapolis Colts are looking at that contract and going, this is going to be really good for me. So I think that it's certainly raised the bar. But again, we went through last year with all the COVID restrictions and some things that the NFL lost revenue-wise. It's all coming back in spades this year. I mean, the money is just flowing in again.
Trey, you bring up an interesting point because you're right. People look at the numbers and they say, should you be paying an off-ball linebacker that much? We hear it with running backs all the time. Certain positions are so-called devalued. Now, from my perspective, it's a good idea to get good football players. Now, you
Correct.
prefer to have a quarterback who's great. You prefer to have, as you mentioned, an edge rusher who's great. But at the end of the day, if you get a good player, shouldn't you focus on let's keep the good player? Or do we, in other words, do we overvalue that sort of mentality that you can't play running backs, you can't pay off-ball linebackers? Well, you can't pay bad ones or average ones, but the really good ones, look at Devin White.
Yeah, Devin White's going to get a monster contract when he's done too. And like Devin, let's be honest, Devin probably should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. I mean, to your point about how we overvalue quarterbacks, the Chiefs were held to 9 points for the first time with Patrick Mahomes healthy. That was the first time they'd ever been held under 30 in a playoff game. And somehow Tom Brady was the MVP. I'm like, like he played fine, don't get me wrong, but you're asking me who won the game. It was the defense and the defensive line, Devin White for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The running back thing, though, was interesting, John, because I have sort of evolved on this position. I really would be hard-pressed to find a way that I could think that I would want to use a first-round pick on a running back these days, because so many running backs have been so productive from outside the second, third, fourth round even at this point. Alvin Kamara was a third-rounder, and look how productive he's been. Dalvin Cook was a second-rounder last year or a few years ago for the Vikings, and he's been so productive. The running back position to me is an interesting one. Like, you'd have to convince me that they're Adrian Peterson for me to think about it. I mean, Christian McCaffrey was a 8th overall pick in 2017, and he's been terrific. But he got injured last year, and we'll see what happens going forward. There's always going to be an anomaly like Derrick Henry. I think you have to pay him because he's such a part of the offense for the Tennessee Titans, and now they have Julio Jones to sort of, give that 1-2 punch. But I would find it much easier for me to be able to pay an inside linebacker that I think could ball out than use draft capital like a first-round pick on a running back the way the game has gone these days.
Here's my philosophy on that, and tell me if I'm off the wall and nuts, Trey. Here's how I look at running backs. I got no issues picking them in the first round. I would have no issues picking them in the first half of the first round if I thought he was down, like Saquon Barkley was a couple of years ago. He's just that good. He deserved to go as high as he did. Some injuries have kind of derailed him, but I think he'll get back on that type track this year. But here's the way I look at running backs. They're getting a first contract out of me. Yeah. If they're getting a second contract, it's going to be at a reduced rate than the one they just finished out the last year of the first contract, because you all know that fifth year goes up and up and up and up and up. Like this year with Derek Barnett, he's going to get paid big time by the Eagles. He's their fourth highest paid player. He's not their fourth best player, but that last year of a 5-year first round contract does get up pretty damn quick. It's a turnaround. You keep them for their 5 years if you use a first-round pick, and then you have the next guy to step in the next year, and you're going to pay him at a slotted amount. That's how I would try and facilitate my running back position going forward. 5-year deal, done. We move on to next guy.
Yeah, and it's hard because you see guys that have been really productive in that first contract, and you say, yeah, you've earned more money, but you're always hedging the bet of when that stops with the running back, because it's the one, it's the position that is the most replaceable in football these days and the most likely to decline the quickest based on the number of hits that you're going to take at that position. And plus, we're not talking about like Emmitt Smith's record of 755 yards. I think is going to last forever. Like no one's doing that anymore. We're not running the ball. Like, to me, you have to be a McCaffrey type, Alvin Kamara type, a Dalvin Cook type running back that is just as good as a receiver than he is as a runner. Like a 2,000-yard season to me is not nearly as impressive as a 1,000 season. 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving that McCaffrey had in 2019. Like that to me should be the new standard for what is excellence at the running back position.
When it comes to a GM, though, Trey, and to Jody's point, you have somebody like Derrick Henry who performs. Yeah. So if you're Jody and say, okay, let's move on to the next guy, but Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. Same thing has happened with Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. Another name you mentioned, he's on his second contract. How do you not play pay players like that.
Right. No, you're right. It's just it's always a dilemma. Like the Vikings didn't have to pay Dalvin when they paid him. I mean, the most egregious second contract for me was the Ezekiel Elliott one. Like the Dallas Cowboys reverse engineered this thing completely. They ended up paying their quarterback last in all of this. They paid. We talked about an off-ball linebacker. They paid Jalen Smith before they paid Dak Prescott, and Ezekiel Elliott held out, had suspension things and other issues, and they paid him before they paid Dak Prescott. Now, part of that I think was the Dak team was basically told the Cowboys, "Look, man, we're not doing this until we absolutely need to, because he's set, he's port. So we're you can throw whatever we want at us, but it's going to be more than what unless you're willing to pay over what the market is right now. We're going to wait." And they played it perfectly, and they got a really good deal for their client. But the Ezekiel Elliott contract gets worse and worse by the minute. You look at his numbers over the last couple of seasons, and they're going like this. And they made that commitment to him, and now they're not even that team anymore. I mean, their offensive line isn't the offensive line that it was when it was his rookie year. And Tyron Smith and Zach Martin are a little older now and banged up. So that contract to me is Jody, to your point, and John, the idea of that second contract, that one is a massive mistake in my opinion.
Fair enough. Trey Wingo here with Birds 365. All right, Johnny and I were kicking this around before you came on. I want to get your take on it, too. Jerry Jones admitted yesterday he may have screwed up when he and Jimmy got to loggerheads and moved on to Barry Switzer. I think we all figured that one out ahead of time. Just Jerry had never admitted it before. Why do you think he did so yesterday? Well,
two things. I think that, Jerry has zero bleeps left to give I'll push an 80. And two, it is Cowboys Hard Knocks season, is it not? Aren't they Hard Knocks this year? Yeah. So, wow, Jerry's being entertaining. I did not see that coming in any way, shape, or form. I've always said about it'll be great content, but I think it'll be bad for the team, because Jerry has always been about the sizzle as much as he's been about the steak.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it is hard for the cynical part of me to not say, of course he did that when he knew the Hard Knocks cameras were going to be there, because it's going to be great content.
Yeah. And by the way, Stephen Jones, to your point, Trey, he admitted our biggest mistake was waiting too long on Dak Prescott to pay Dak Prescott. So it's like truth serum got into the Joneses talking about the Dallas Cowboys. But I do want to talk about the NFC East, obviously, close with the Eagles. I think people look at this as a sort of a have and have-nots division. The haves aren't great, but I do think people look at Dallas and Washington as the two teams at the top, Giants and Eagles at the bottom. Is that the way you see it, or is there a little bit of a wiggle room there?
Well, here's what I've learned over the years in the NFC East. Nobody knows anything, right? If you go into last season, everyone would have said, Dallas and Philadelphia are the top two teams in that division, and the Giants and the Washington football team are dreck. Well, who was competing down the last week of the season for the NFC East title? It was the dreck, the Giants and the Washington football team. Now, I love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I love what the defensive side has done in Washington, and Jack Del Rio, their DC, has done an amazing job. I think the Cowboys should be the class of this division, but they're the Cowboys. You know what I mean? Like I can't give anything with any certainty on any team in the NFC East, simply because of just it's so unpredictable and what we've seen over the last couple of years. I expect nothing, and nothing would surprise me in the NFC East. That's the only way I can look at it.
You just said something that made me think of something, and I wasn't planning on asking this question today, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you owned a football team and someone said to you, listen, we're going to take away your nickname. We're just going to refer to you as where you're playing your football games for 2 years, but then we're going to let you pick a new nickname. Would you even gone down there? How have we come to calling them the Washington football team for 2 years? We did it last year because they weren't ready to come up with a nickname. Now they're going to be the Washington football team, but damn, we're going to have a nickname next year. How the heck is this decided to shake itself out this way, Trey?
Because Daniel Snyder had to come kicking and screaming and drag to this conclusion. it tells you everything that he never wanted to do this. He was forced to do it, which, by the way, I have no problem with. He was forced to do it, and he didn't have a plan, and they still don't have a plan. So they're going to try and figure out what the best plan is over a 2-year period. And quite frankly, there's a part of me that just kind of likes the football team now. Like, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world when I heard it the first time. You're just going to call them the football team? But now it's like, we're the football team. I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of like it now after a year of this.
All right, Trey, though, you were being cynical about the Cowboys and Hard Knocks. I'm going to be cynical here. I think they're double dipping twice purposefully for the merchandise. You got the Washington football team sell, and then you're going to sell all the new stuff with the new team name. I think
John, that's a great point. John, that's a great point. It's like, how many throwback jerseys can you sell? Like, hey, let's start. Well, we're gonna have this helmet this year. We're gonna do this. It's all marketing. It's all merchandise. So yeah, there's absolutely a part of it. They're like, look, let's sell all this merch for one more year, and then we got a whole nother batch. Absolutely.
But let me follow up there. We kid because we care and we can. You kind of lean toward. We had Howard on early. He's leaning toward them. The Washington football team did win the division last year. Yeah. And the only reason why anybody wouldn't pick them going into this season would be Dak Prescott to the Cowboys.
Yep.
Yet their organization is a mess. Yeah. Their owner is in big time trouble, being sued, so much so that he put his wife into the CEO position so he could take a step back. Yet they're going to try and win the division for back-to-back years, which hasn't been done since Andy Reid did it here.
Andy Reid's Eagles in 3 years in a row.
Decade ago. Will the separation of church and state, football, and the rest of the organization be good enough that this team can actually not have all the front office drama affect the on-field action?
Well, I think that they've done a really good job in cleaning up the front office. And I think, obviously, Ron Rivera and his staff have done a great job. The new GM and president have done a great job. To me, the organization, the only part of the organization that stinks is the guy that owns it at this point. Like that's the problem. I think they've done a really good job trying to disassociate themselves from the guy who signs the checks. And I think that look, I mean, last year Ron Rivera had to battle cancer and all this turmoil and COVID, and they still won the division. So if they can find a way to work through all of that, I'm convinced that the structure they have in place on the football side, not on the financial side, not on the business side, but on the football side is good enough to deal with whatever is going on above them. I do believe that.
I want to talk about the NFL and the Washington football team, Trey, because how do you do an investigation of these serious charges and there's no written report? How does this league get away with stuff like that?
Well, my alma mater, Baylor University, tried that with the Art Briles thing. And it was an oral report. There was no paperwork. Find me a lawyer that doesn't show their work. Okay, like find me a lawyer that's I'm billing you a gazillion dollars an hour, but I have no paper to show the proof that I did the work. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah. It is unbelievable. And I want to shift gears toward the complicated fella in Green Bay, because the rubber's going to hit the road here with Aaron Rodgers. $40,000 a day, which is probably meaningless for Aaron at this point. But nonetheless, it's money you can't get back. He doesn't seem to have a lot of options. If he wants to play, he's going to have to play in Green Bay, it seems. Will he walk away? Will he give that, whatever it is, $25 million back and say, you know what? I'm so headstrong, I'm done with this team. Or is he going to play it out?
I think that Aaron Rodgers' position is dug in, and I don't think I've seen anything that's changed his position. I mean, this is a guy who divorced his family over a perceived slight. Like, he doesn't talk to his family anymore. He doesn't. If you watch that match when he played with Bryson DeChambeau against Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady, and there was a lot of trash talk between them before the match, and then Phil Mickelson tried to knuckle bump him after a good punt, and Aaron was like, "Get out of here, man! You're done. You dissed me." This is who he is, and I think that the Packers are the team, are the side in this that needs to understand that he's not changing. I believe this is very similar to when Carson Palmer told the Bengals, "Guys, I'm not playing for you anymore," and he was willing to walk away from $50 million in that situation. And it took halfway through the season, but the Bengals eventually traded him to the Raiders. And then, of course, he went on to play really well for the Cardinals. I believe that Aaron Rodgers' mind has not changed from when this first story came out, and nothing that they've done. I mean, they put out that story yesterday that Adam Schefter had, that they had made him this offer that would have made him the highest paid player in football, and it would have tied him to the organization for 5 more years. Well, why does that story come out? Because it makes the Packers look good and it makes Aaron Rodgers look bad. That story was leaked for a reason. And it's never been about the money with Aaron Rodgers. It's never going to be about the money. I think his position is, you guys we don't jive anymore. And I'm done playing for you. I don't think he's going to play for the Packers. And I think eventually they're going to have to come to that realization, and they're going to have to move him.
All right, so let's say Mark Murphy is watching Birds 365 right now,
and he hears what
Trey Wingo has to say, and he goes, "Damn, he's probably right." Yeah. When is the best time for the Green Bay Packers to trade Aaron Rodgers? Is it tomorrow? Is it during the preseason? Do you wait till in season? Do you let him sit out an entire year and get Jordan and just continue to have to deal with the slings and arrows of the media that Aaron Rodgers is sitting at home? If you are the Green Bay Packers, when is the best time to say, all right, we give, you win, Aaron, we'll trade you?
April, but they didn't do that.
No, that's a future tense we're looking at.
Yeah, listen, they're going to have to come to everything they've said, has been like, oh, he's a complicated fella and, nothing has changed. I mean, they have tried everything, right? They've tried to meet with him. They've tried to fly out and have the coach and the GM go talk. He has rebuffed them on every front, every single time. He has not showed up. He's not going to show up. I think that they're not there yet, is what I'm saying. In this relationship, one person is there. He's there. The other side, the other part of this relationship is not there yet. I think that they're going to try and wait as long as they can before they come to the realization that he's already made up his mind. So to me, obviously, I would trade him before the season, but I don't think they're going to. I think they are so convinced that at this point that he'll come back, that they're going to wait as long as possible. I would imagine it happens around the trade deadline. That would be my interpretation of events.
All right, Trey, last one from me. The uncertainty of the other big name quarterback, Deshaun Watson in Houston. Here in Philadelphia, it just never ends. They're constantly talking about the Eagles with Deshaun Watson. Ultimately, we talked about the investigation in Washington. The NFL's doing this parallel investigation. They haven't interviewed Deshaun Watson, to my knowledge, which is an interesting interview. But I think Roger Goodell is going to pop his head out before Tuesday and say, commissioner's exempt list. But ultimately, where do you see Deshaun Watson going? Is it on the shelf for the entire season? Can anything happen? And can Houston trade him without these allegations being cleared up? Is that even possible?
I mean, Houston can, but I don't know what team that would, right? I mean, that's the issue. Like, I know that the Dolphins were very interested in Deshaun, and I'm sure the Eagles were at some point as well. But then this thing became ugly. And if you're a general manager anywhere, you cannot pull that trigger until you know what you're facing. So I think that, to your point, when we get clarity from Roger Goodell, I think we'll get a little more clarity on the potential suitors for Deshaun Watson, because you can't. It's going to take draft capital. It's going to take a lot of players and picks to make a trade, because Houston really doesn't want to trade him, even with all these allegations. But you can't, as a guy willing to go down that road, you can't make that decision until you know what you're getting. Are you going to miss him for 4 games? Are you going to miss him for 6? Are you going to miss him for 8? You don't know. So to me, I cannot, in good conscience, make a trade for Deshaun Watson until I know exactly what the penalties are going to be.
All right, Trey, last thing, and they're both YouTube questions here on YouTube with us on Birds 365. We appreciate that. Trey Wingo presents, number 1, who's the next guest we're looking forward to? And number 2, in the ones that you've done, you had a sense of what it was going to be like when you started the interview and what you hoped to achieve. When it was over and done with, that you said to yourself, damn, didn't see that happening. Didn't know he's going to say that. Really? Is that what we got out of this? That's good. Who was the one that surprised you most who you've interviewed so far?
Well, thank you. First of all, season 4 is going to start in August. We've already taped a few Hall of Famers and a couple of current head coaches, so we're excited about that. Again, you can get it, Half Forgotten History, Trey Wingo Presents, on my YouTube channel. Honestly, T.O. was a lot of fun. I mean, he when we got T.O., I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting because, he and I have butted heads a lot when I was at ESPN. But he was actually great. And the conversations about the whole driveway thing in Philadelphia were incredible, the driveway workout. And then we really got into it about the Hall of Fame. Like, I respect his opinion, but I felt like he penalized the wrong people. Like the Hall of Fame people in Canton, it's their year. It's a grown person's prom, the Hall of Fame ceremony. Yeah. And the city lives for it. And I understand that he was mad about the writers, but I felt like by punishing the writers, or thinking he was punishing the writers and the voters, he actually punished the people in Canton, Ohio. And I thought that they did not deserve his wrath. And so we sort of went back and forth with it on that, but we ended up just settling it nice over a bottle of his 81 wine. But it was a really fun. I really enjoyed that, and he surprised me a lot.
We'll have fun watching you with your guys this year. Thank you very much for giving us the heads up. Thanks for coming on. We're going to be punching you up as the season gets underway. Always good to see you, Trey. Keep hitting them long and strong.
All right, John, Jody, thanks very much. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, Trey Wingo here with us on Birds 365. I did not know that. I didn't even know I was going to ask that question. It's popping into my head. No. Little did I know he was going to go T.O. as the most fun and yet revealing and surprising interview that he did. So if you're any kind of an Eagles fan, you got to go to Trey's YouTube website and check out the interview.
I always like to talk about push-ups in Morristown. It's always exciting.
That not far from where I was living at the time. Yes, thank you very much, T.O. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're coming back to put a bow on the show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.